morning, good morning, good morning. How the devil are you doing this Sunday? Hope you're all fit and well. Loads of people coming through the chat this morning. Gary Muirhead set the tone for the entire day. Gary said this at 9:34: rise like a phoenix and conquer the day. Good morning. I do my best. I'm not feeling particularly phoenix-like. I'm fit and well. I haven't got my wife's cold. I'm not entirely sure I can go full phoenix, but I'll do my best. Speaking of my other half, she's doing a bit better, full of lemsip and also full of snot. Yeah, sneezing and snorting all night she was. But yeah, she's been off to her slimming club today. Got her 3.5 stone award. I'm sure she's absolutely delighted with that. She's not back yet, so I haven't been able to tell her congratulations. Jim is in our midst as well, and I think he too is suffering on with the lurgy. Hang on a minute, there we are. Reckon I've got the same lurgy. Must have sneezed 50 times yesterday and coughed enough snot up to paste a roll of wallpaper. There's a mental image I could quite easily have managed without on a Tuesday morning, but get well soon, my friend. Dan Cullen is in the house. I saw others as well. Who else did I see here? Oh, blimey, it keeps going. Chris Ford is here. Morning, all. Cooking internet struggling to get a signal. Mark Whiting is here as well. Jim says he called it off his lad. He had it for well over a week. One thing I would say about my other half is that yes, she has got a cold now, but hopefully she'll be all fit and well before she jumps on a plane and heads off to Las Vegas. Dan, I'll come back to that in just a moment. But Carillion, yes, they are back in the news. I know Ken Hatter is here as well. There's Ken. Morning, Ken. Plenty of people over in the chat as well over on Instagram. Dan O'Brien is here as well. Ray Gunn, really, is here. Lots and lots of people over there. And Lukey92 has just started following me over on Instagram. So good news. Lots to cover today. Our morning monologue today is, I mean, they're all usually quite serious, but this one is actually about a serious matter that you need to be aware of. Late last night, I actually put the finishing touches to like a follow-up document to go with it. We're talking about whole body vibration and how it might impact you if you are at the controls of a machine. I'll be covering it today in the morning monologue, but I will also be free of charge. Just help yourself. You see, unlike some certain organizations, when I produce a safety thing, I don't ask you to pay for it. I don't put it behind a paid firewall. Just saying, it'll be free of charge. So if you are after that kind of thing, if you'd like to know more about whole body vibration and its potential impact upon your giblets, maybe you can get that free of charge. Tomorrow, two things tomorrow. We're doing an evening show with CM Labs at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. So please be there for that. Also tomorrow, I'm about 3/4 of the way through writing this. I'm not much of a one for conspiracy theories, but I'm writing my own. You'll find out about it tomorrow. But if you think about... No, I'm not going to give the game away. You tune in tomorrow and you'll find out what it's all about. Dan says, like the hat. Thank you very much indeed for that. We'll I tell you what. Let's get the thing underway. I'll tell you what's coming up in the show. Then we'll have a chat about Carillion. Then we'll kick on. How does that sound? Has nobody said anything? Let's do that. It is Tuesday, the 17th of February. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, and the authentic voice of the global demolition industry. In today's show, machine autonomy might be closer than you think. Hitachi has Synergy quite pleased with this, has synergy with the plant hire sector, and yet another new Volvo excavator has joined the range. Plus, in our MB Crusher sponsored Countdown to Connexpo series, we're catching up with Edge Innovate. And in my morning monologue today, well, it's called All Shook Up. That's what it's called, All Shook Up. It's about whole body vibration. If that sounds like the kind of thing you can get behind, please stick around to the very end. But let us begin with a smidgen of this. Yeah, as our friend Dan, oh, hang on a minute, let's get rid of that. As our friend Dan Cullen has just said, there is more news. I mean, how long ago was it that Carillion went down the toilet? Can't actually remember, but here we are. Fast forward a good few years. It must be 5 years, I would have thought. The Financial Conduct Authority has fined Richard Howson, who was the chief executive of Carillion, £237,700 for his part in misleading statements issued by Carillion ahead of its collapse in 2018. It was actually 8 years ago. It's all blurred, to be honest. As Group Chief Executive, Howson was aware of the serious financial troubles in Carillion's UK construction business, but he failed to reflect this in the company announcements or alert its board and audit committee, leading to poor oversight, the FCA said. The FCA initially announced a provisional fine for Howson of £397,800 in 2022, but he challenged that, and the sum was subsequently reduced after he withdrew his appeal before the court hearing. So, fined, let's call it £250,000 for keeping that under wraps. Obviously, the collapse of Carillion was one of probably the worst collapse in certainly in my memory within the UK construction industry. And I realised, he kept that from the board, and it caused problems with the company. But what about wider than that? What about all the supply chain that suffered as a result of him keeping that all under wraps? Would they have been quite so free and easy with their credit terms had they known that Carillion was on the verge of going tits up? I don't believe they would. It does make me wonder if there's possibility for a further court case from what do they call it in America? A class action? Do we have class actions here in the UK? I don't believe we do. But if we did, I think that would be a perfect example of where one would work. Let's go over to the chat very quickly. What do we got here? Jim says, "You're steering the ship. We are merely the passengers. Have you seen how I'm steering this ship? I've got one eye closed. I'm drunk at the wheel, and I don't know where I'm going. But yeah, you just relax as passengers. Can't believe it. All this amazing content, wonderful live weekday show, fantastic articles, and it all costs nothing. £0. Yes, it costs £0. I wish I'd thought of a way to make you pay. No, to be perfectly honest, the absolute truth, my belief, and it's been my belief since I worked on magazines, that the advertising and sponsorship and the stuff that goes on behind the scenes should make this free of charge, which currently it does. It gets tight at times, I'll be the first to admit it, but yes, we do try to keep all of this free of charge, and particularly things related to health and safety. If I sit down and spend weeks writing a book, a work of fiction, I'd quite like a few quid for that, and I don't think that's too much to ask. But if I'm sharing with you details of something that might actually help safeguard your health, should I be charging for that? I don't think so, and I've called out others that do, so why on earth would I join the club now? Dan, thank you for that. It was 2018. Chris Ford says, Squib liquidators are still looking for £2.5 million worth of equipment. I got to be honest, they can't be looking that hard, can they? Do you know what I mean? It's not like you've got a high reach excavator in your back pocket. Me? I don't know what you're talking about. That bulge in my pocket? No, just pleased to see you. No, of course not. Yes. Gary says, great to see that even after 8 years, you still can't escape punishment. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously that all leads on to what we'll be talking about on Monday with Didcot and everything else. We're 10 years on that one, and you'd have to think that's going to come home to roost at some point as well. Ken Hatcher saying petty cash for him. Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is, and I'm pretty sure that pockets were lined and nests were feathered before the final fall came. But yeah, Jim says, I bet they don't find it, Chris. Yeah, I've got a funny feeling they won't either. Yeah. That's at least 2 mil, Chris. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, think that's a foregone conclusion, Jim. Bit of forward planning, yes. I won't tell you which company it was. It was a demolition company. I was tipped the wink that a demolition company was on the verge of going under. And I spoke to the company in question. This is going back a few years, probably pre-COVID. I spoke to the company in question, and obviously they denied. No, in trouble? Surely not. No, we've got a full order book. We're committed to the future. In fact, we're making investments. They were lying, and shit happens. You get used to that. But then I was sent a photograph of not one, not two, not three, but a convoy of low loaders laden down with their equipment, all going off up the road somewhere, never to be seen again. Yeah. Probably 2 weeks later, they finally went, that's it, we're done. We're done. We can't go on. It's all gone tits up. It's all gone pear-shaped. Equipment, you say? I mean, we had some. I couldn't possibly say what happened. We don't keep that close a check on it. 3 million quid's worth, you reckon? Well, it probably was. Yes. How did it get reduced? He should pay full price. Yes, he should. And I always think that's a bit of a dicey game to play. You will recall after the CMA investigation, the second biggest fine was actually levied against Keltbray. I think they received a fine of about 16 million quid, and they decided we're going to fight this, and they took it to court, and the court said, actually, make it 18 million. Yeah, and they ended up actually paying the biggest fine. That's a true story. It's that time of year again. Come on, you uppers, if you know, you know. That's that thing, that game thing that you lot do, you weird buggers up in your part of the world. And Caldwell is in the same situation, missing equipment. What you call that after the company went tits up, 4 years on, vans and plant missing. Yes. As somebody said, bit of forward, as Chris Ford said, bit of forward planning, and it can vanish very, very easily. I do remember speaking to the police years ago. I mean, this is when I'm still on a magazine, and they'd raided a farm, which they believed to be the hub of a plant theft ring. And they had a look around. There was a couple of tractors, but nothing really of note. But they weren't convinced, and they started to dig around, and they actually dug up some machines that had been buried. Completely sealed, tarps over them and everything else, and then lightly covered with sawdust and sand, and basically it was, we'll tuck them away till the dust settles. And also, this was within early doors of tracking equipment. Once we make sure that they're not being tracked, we'll dig them up and we'll sell them off into, back in the day, it used to be Ireland or Cyprus. Don't know why it was those two. Ireland or Cyprus were the key outlets for stolen equipment. Jim says, I take it you're going to the game stroke battle, Chris. Chris says, correct, Jim. So is most of the staff. You can't beat them, join them. It looks like an accident waiting to happen. I can't even remember what the game was called, but somebody will enlighten me. When my beloved Rangers Football Club went into administration, the list of creditors was long, but the one that made me laugh was £22 to a face painting company in Glasgow. That was the time they turned Gaza into a lion or something, probably. Oh, do you see, that breaks my heart. Funnily enough, Dan says, just seen a little fox. Looks like it's been hit by a car. It's a dog at the end of the day. And I realise those of you that live out in the wild and have livestock probably see them differently. But I'm a city boy, and I see dogs as foxes as wild dogs. We actually had 3 in our back garden last night. Mum and a couple of, I called them pups, but they're cubs, aren't they? Fox cubs. Yeah. I'll have a go for a look at the spectacle one year. Yeah, make sure you do, and take the video camera as well. It's on 2 days. Second day is more of a local game. Looks evil to me. I can imagine the director in the boardroom with a tiger face trying to sort things out. Yes, so can I. So can I. Last week they found mini digger and trailers in caravans in Essex. They'd been missing since 2017. Yeah, yeah. As I say, in the age of there's 2 approaches. I mean, we actually did. Me and Fred did a hot pursuit once, and I do mean this. We were working with one of these tracking companies, and we went along. We thought we were just going to go along and follow an inspection, but the guy got a phone call and said we were in hot pursuit. So Fred jumped in the car, filming him as they went, and they went all the way through Kent, down into Essex, down into a scrapyard. And when they arrived, they were actually chopping up a van. And the van had a tracker in it, and they were trying to isolate the tracker so that they could get on with their business. But when they actually opened the back of the van, a couple of mini excavators in there. Dodgy, dodgy, dodgy. The game we're talking about is the Royal Shrovetide Football. 3 miles between the goals. I couldn't even walk that far, let alone run it or battle my way through it. Anyway, people, hang on a minute, there's one more. It doesn't take long to mount up a few million of missing kit. I know an open cast crowd, they thought they had a load of good rebuilt kit. Plenty of kit got rebuilt, but not this. Yeah. Should we crack on? We've got a lot to get through today, so let me entertain you with this. Now, as you know, we've got a show for you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. tomorrow night, where we're talking to CM Labs, one of the companies really pioneering the whole autonomous and simulation and everything else. Whenever we talk about this, I tend to think of it as a thing way, way down the line, probably after I've hung up my Bobcat baseball cap. It's a long way in the distance. It's being tested right here and right now.
Construction has a number of challenges to be faced up to across the industry. These challenges include the attraction and retention of a skilled workforce. There's productivity, and in some instances the construction sector is seen as an industry which has not or is not implementing technology in innovative ways. Working in collaboration with Gravis Robotics and Zurich ETH University, implementing the Morgan Sindall construction model of intelligent solutions, we are aiming to respond to these challenges with the trial of automated excavation on our sites. Bringing together our design capabilities for our building information models and robotic technology, we are implementing truly modern and innovative methods of working. The use of robotic excavators in either fully automated ways or semi-automation supports ourselves, our supply chain, our customers and society as a whole in improving productivity, decarbonising the work we do through improved outputs, therefore utilising less fuel and focusing on the well-being of our workforce, enhancing safety. We see this technology as a method of improving output of excavation and therefore responding in part to some of the productivity challenge the industry faces. The excavator has proven to be as productive as a skilled machine driver, or in some instances more efficient in its work. We've established that multiple machines can be operated by a single operator, and in my opinion could be a route to attracting new people into the industry, as the machines, if desired, can be operated through the use of typical gaming controllers. This may attract early career people into the industry who are likely to be more familiar with these devices and can work in a comfortable environment. Building safety and building safely is always at the heart of everything we do. The machine, through the linking to our design models, ensures that our excavations meet the requirements designed, and through the geogrid and sensors embedded into the technology, ensures that the machine will only ever be operated in a safe location, stopping if any personnel should inadvertently walk near the machine, keeping people safe at all times.
We're here today with the first autonomous excavator in the UK. It's equipped with our rooftop autonomous control kit, which is equipped with a LiDAR and a GPS sensor to allow it to position itself and navigate itself around the construction site. And it's also equipped with cameras which allows it to get the appropriate perception inputs together with the LiDAR, so it can make sure it positions the excavator correctly in autonomous mode for excavation work such as trenching, bulk earthwork and truck loading. It's also equipped with sensors located on the arm, the dipper and the bucket of the excavator, and those are IMU sensors, so it understands the position of each of those components at any one time. It's got pressure sensors built into the hydraulic system, so it can understand the forces that it's encountering when it's in excavation. Based on those inputs, it can then adapt to the heterogeneous ground conditions it's encountering, so it can then dig in sand or loamy soil or indeed clay soils. And that's really the secret behind the software which we're using on this, which is AI-powered software, which has been developed over 10 years in conjunction with ETH University, with Gravis Robotics being a spin-off from ETH University.
This is a truly exciting time for the industry, and the implementation of this technology responds directly to our responsible commitment to protect people, to develop people, to improve the environment, and working together with our supply chain enables us to enhance the communities where we design and build our projects in which we live, learn, work, play, care and protect.
Now, setting aside that guy's delivery, wow. If Morgan Sindel are doing that now, they're not doing it for fun. They're doing it because they can see the writing on the wall. Might not be today, might not be tomorrow, but trust me, that technology is coming. And to be honest, that partly fuels tomorrow's conspiracy theory-led morning monologue. I'll tell you more about that when we get there. I'm going to go back to matters of disappearing equipment. you know that really specialized vanishing equipment that you get. Mike Wolf, morning Mike, says back in the 1990s, a UK contractor went bust. Costly construction machines were sold to a company belonging to the brother of the contractor's owner. The machines were sold for very small sums of money and written off. I recall the owner of the contractor also bought an old fighter jet and a tank, as you do. There used to be, I don't believe it's the same company, but there used to be, I think they still exist, but don't think he's there anymore. There used to be a company down in Kent, a Channel Plant. They did some work, not surprisingly, on the Channel Tunnel. Channel Plant hire company, and they owned a tank as well. What possesses you to do that? Do you wake up one morning? I mean, I sometimes wake up in the morning and think I could do with a new t-shirt or a new pair of jeans or something. What's going through your mind when you wake up and you probably get a chieftain tank today? Day won't be complete without one. What's going on there? Going back to all things about Vanishing Plant. They had a management buy. It turns out the management weren't that sharp. The kit they bought was great on paper, but in reality was shite. Chris, talking about the autonomous machine, didn't see a full bucket any time. Wonder what operators they're getting their information off. I'm absolutely sure that will improve over the, as I say about everything technology-wise, today is the worst it will ever be. It will slowly improve. But also, don't lose sight of the fact that you are, as a carbon-based, blood and organs human being, you are required to achieve maximum productivity over the course of the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours. An autonomous machine could work all night. The bucket might not be quite as full, but I guarantee if you give it 24 hours, it's going to outperform a human. Dan says, now I'd like to see it work in a completely rural place like where Gary is. Again, you can put the network in. Literally a box of... have I got something? Haven't really got... Hang on a minute. Something about that size with a couple of aerials sticking out of it. You've got yourself an instant 5G network. Ain't a problem. Fair play to them. He really fills me the confidence with all that clean PPE. Yeah. I mean, listen, it's early doors. It is early doors. But Morgan Sindall is what, second or third biggest construction company in the UK now? They're looking at it not for the... I mean, that will have cost them money. It will have cost them money to get the machines in, to do the pilot, to do the test, to do the video, and all of that. They're not doing that for fun. They're doing it for a reason. It's not exciting in my opinion. It's not as good as the man behind the levers. Not yet. Not yet. Think about how technology advances. Think about the first generation iPhone. It was good, but it wasn't great. That's great. Think about AI. When AI first dropped, particularly ChatGPT, I think it could only go back maybe 1 or 2 years because it had been... And it wasn't that it couldn't go back 1 or 2 years. It was the fact that it could only go back to... I think its memory started sort of 2022 and back, because it had taken a while to develop and everything else. So it was okay, but it wasn't great. And if you wanted to know anything about what happened in 2023, for example, you'd struggle a bit. Not anymore. It comes on in leaps and bounds. And also, when you think about that system there, I mean, I've seen that Gravis robotic system now 2 or 3 times, both in video form, but also in the field as well. It's learning all the time. I say it. They are learning all the time. They're getting a better understanding of real-world environments and stuff, but also the machine itself, the software behind it is learning as it goes along. And I did find it interesting. I wonder how far Morgan Sindall have gone with that. I got the impression they were requiring the AI and the software and the robotics to be trained to their specification. Now, I don't know what that specification includes, but if that's the case, and we saw it a little while ago with the Hyundai robot, there is a thing called shared intelligence. So you teach that machine how to do things in the correct manner, the manner that you have prescribed. And it can then transfer that information to other machines to ensure that not just one machine, but your entire fleet follows the same rules. A truly exciting time, but couldn't sound less exciting. I picked up on that. It reminded me, I don't know if anybody... I've seen a different side of him now, but the tennis player, Andy Murray. Andy Murray, as it turns out, has got quite a good sense of humour now that he's out of the game. But I do remember him sitting there after he'd won Wimbledon. Andy, how do you feel? I feel very emotional. It really has been an emotional roller coaster winning Wimbledon for the first time. Tell your face then. Yeah, and that guy was very much the same. Chris Ford says, I've got a tank, a water tank. I don't think that's quite the same. When Budge went bust, he sold a hell of a lot of stuff to his relations for virtually nothing. I wonder if that was who Mike was talking about. I worked at Just Platform Hire. He had 2 army lorries and a Jeep. And he was looking at a tank. He has over £1 million worth of vintage and American cars. John Mould of J Mould Reading has the same. I think, I'm fairly sure I heard, I mean, I've seen the collection. I didn't count them, but I'm fairly sure he's got something like 200 vehicles. And he's got a team, they're all undercover. He's got a team that starts them and polishes them and everything else. And they're all, by and large, they were all based around, I think his dad was a greengrocer, and his dad had a pickup truck, back in the, an old 1940s style pickup truck. So when he had a few quid, he went and bought one like his dad's, and he had it decked out in the J Mould Reading livery. And then he bought another one, and another one, and another one. So he's got not just a big collection, but they're very much themed. But in the middle of that theme, when I was there was an NYPD police car. And I said, that kind of stands out. What's the thinking behind that? He said, I went to New York to buy a specific thing. It went for too much money. I wasn't willing to pay it, but I thought, having come to New York, I'll buy something. So I bought an NYPD police car. Yeah. That's things that people do. Maybe if the bucket was not as full, it wouldn't use as much fuel. I remember Kat telling me never over bucket the machine. Interesting. I mean, I would imagine. I would imagine all the major manufacturers have got this. But I mean, I remember when I was working with Caterpillar, the calculations that they were able to do. Things like fleet matching. You've got that excavator and these trucks. Actually, what you need is one more truck, but a smaller excavator, or whatever it might be. And very, very good at that. I'd be interested to see the maths on that. I haven't much confidence in some of these firms. What would you use an operator with 45 plus years experience without a medical, or a greenhorn with not a clue, but with a medical, answers on a stamp? True. When I was there, he rang about an army truck in Switzerland. Next day, he jumped in a lorry low loader, went to Switzerland and back over the weekend. Yeah. I can't imagine. Well, I mean, I can't imagine ever having that sort of money anyway. And to be perfectly honest, I can't ever see me desiring a tank. I really can't. But I also wonder that about, your big money earning celebrities who suddenly discover a passion for whatever it might be. What tipped you over? Was it the presence of the money? Did you suddenly decide that, henceforth, I can only stay in 5-star hotels and have lackeys running around after me? Yeah, but you were born on a council estate, mate. Is there a point in your bank balance where it goes over, I don't know, 1 million, 10 million, 15 million? You go, that's it. I'm going to be an arsehole from now on. If anyone knows, love to hear from you. Still have my doubts about this technology. Things on site can change minute by minute, hour by hour. Can it compute this information and make a decision on this? I think that's one of the issues with, and I think that's where the crossover will be. Full autonomy, I think, is a little ways away. Remote control with autonomy, that's quite a different matter. We showed that yesterday with the company, hazardous operations, where you can have somebody sort of standing by. Okay, I'll take it from here and I'll do this bit. Maybe that is the transition point. Gary says we're going to go up in the Highlands with a secret collection of old vintage and very rare Caterpillar dozers with wire ropes. Can't be that secret, because you've just broadcast it to the nation. Dan says, very true, Chris. And what gets my go is operators with lifting ops can't lift correctly and use chains. Boils my blood. Never mind a tank, but a Priestman VC excavator, there's a different proposition. But that's a passion, isn't it? Maybe I'm doing people that own tanks a disservice. Maybe since they were children and they were playing with their toy soldiers, they've secretly hankered after a chieftain or it's the only tank I can think of. Maybe they've hankered after it their entire life, and then suddenly they come into money and they say to the wife, I'm popping out later. I may be some time, but don't be surprised if I come back with a tank. My wife gets pissed off if I come back with a new pair of trainers. I know a guy who can buy these medicals and sell them to people. Ridiculous. Yeah. Whenever there's an obstacle, somebody somewhere will find a way around it. I mean, I'm still being offered spurious competence cards, not quite daily, but regularly. I mean, maybe once or twice a week. And you know full well, and I've reported them to the authorities. By the time the authorities take their thumb out of their backside, they've shut up shop and they've gone somewhere else, and they're now under a new name. So yes, all going on. Should we do something else? Should we have a bit of synergy with Hitachi? I think we should after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
I didn't know this. Crouch Recovery have some vintage and army trucks. I'm very well aware of Crouch Recovery. I didn't know they were into that kind of thing. I hope nobody cuts that bit out. I didn't know they were into that kind of thing. They were into vintage trucks, nothing sketchy. Right, Synergy Hire, Hitachi, the M27. When they all come together like this.
We're in the south of England, just off the M27, working on Junction 10 improvement scheme. We're delivering the Civils Pack on behalf of Volker Fitzpatrick. The Civils Pack contains drainage, earthworks, curbing and ducting. We use Synergy Hire because they offer an excellent level of service that we've come to expect. When it comes to doing lift plans, is that we can call up Synergy and they'll provide us all the lifting charts that we need so we can write our lift plans. Synergy Hire also help us massively with our last minute requests as well. It's normally driven by the client and it's just the industry that we're in. But they can always help us out last minute if we need a new machine, if we need lifting charts, if we need a plant movement, and they've helped us out of a bind quite a few times, which makes us look good to our client. What they can do and what they have done in the past for us is they've come in on Saturdays to do servicing, which is very good for making us meet on our targets and programme delivery, and we haven't got to stand many people down. We choose to hire equipment because there's less risk involved when you're hiring, because any servicing, maintenance is typically done by the hirer, and it's more convenient.
Going back to all things Crouch Recovery, apparently they've got a D9 with a large recovery winch cut into the blade. Sounds like quite the beast. Dan saying about the spurious card people, that's the problem. They change numbers and emails addresses quickly. They do, yeah. I wouldn't say they're untraceable. I think if the authorities, the card providers, spent as much time on the likes of Instagram and TikTok as I do, I don't spend any time on TikTok, but I do spend a bit of time on Instagram. If they spent any time there, they too would be able to identify them a lot more quickly. Instead of which, I see them, I report them, that's passed to somebody else, who's passed it to somebody else, who then comes back and says, what's happened? By which time they've buggered off. Chris, I wonder what the cutoff is. Hitachi become Landcross in April 2027, so more than a year away. Should we start to ease ourselves in? Acclimatise, get used to the mouthfeel of Landcross. Should we preempt the actual switch off? I don't know. I don't remember having to do that before. Dan says, guy there, lifting chains, full length, no call for it. Shorter, be better. There'd be less swinging. Synergy Hire. You have been told. We've got we've got two more films actually. We're doing Volvo next after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, Volvo very slowly but very surely seem to be updating their entire excavator range. We had a new one for you yesterday. Got another new one for you today. Check this out. Yes, Volvo. Let me just go back here. Going back to Dave Crouch at Crouch Recovery. He's been buying and selling ex-military stuff for years. Did not know that. I think my exposure to Crouch Recovery is literally just seeing their trucks on the road. Chris Ford, going back to all things related to Hitachi, Landcross, nearly as many name changes as Develon. Develon, yeah. Obviously, I mean, I was first exposed to that brand as Daewoo, or Daewoo, as we used to say. Daewoo became Doosan, Doosan became Develon. Dan says, I bet it'll be a few years before it actually takes off. Hitachi is engraved in so many men's head. Be hard to change. It will. And I do still find myself slipping with Doosan. I do still slip in the occasional Doosan from time to time. Develon is owned by Hyundai, however you pronounce it. Yeah. The one thing I will say about the switch from Hitachi to Landcross, at least Landcross is easy to say. Where are we now? 3 years on from the Doosan to Develon change? I'm still not entirely convinced I'm saying it right, whereas Landcross is Landcross is Landcross. Sorry, lads, my 220X is getting lonely. Got to go. No problem at all, Dan. You're going to miss learning all about whole body vibration, but you'll be able to pick up later on. Don't worry. I wish this 145 was lonely and I was on the new Hitachi. I've been promised. Well, fingers crossed, it'll be coming down the road for you very, very soon. It's ConExpo time after this. So, first and foremost, we got this from Gary. I wonder what the reason is for all these name changes. I think the one from Develon, obviously Develon, Doosan, owned by Hyundai, and I think they were, the way they explained it was they were keen to separate the two. That, you know, the two they'd be part of the same organisation, but they'd gradually go off in the different directions. That one I understand. Hitachi to Landcross, it feels like something that just happened in a marketing meeting. Somebody said, "Yeah, we should do. We should just change the name of the company, ring the changes." You know, at which point you'd have thought somebody would have said, "Well, everyone knows Hitachi." Yeah, but you know, what about a refresh? What about we call it something like Landcross? I'm not entirely convinced, but LANDCROSS? No, just the single S. I've no idea. No idea. And Mark Whiting, interestingly, I see that Pat Quinn's new 130 Hitachi has Landcross on the side skirts. the change. Going back to what we were saying earlier, where will be the cutoff point? Well, apparently the cutoff point has already begun. The land crosses are in the wild, literally as we speak. It is, well, this time in 2 weeks, I will be in Vegas enjoying, hopefully, the sunshine and the mecca of plant, but within which I will find myself. One of the companies traveling as far as I am, I'm traveling from the UK, obviously, to America, traveling from Ireland to America, is Edge Innovate.
What does it take to move ahead of the competition? Not just to build a new scalping screen, but to deliver a new way forward for power, performance, and simplicity. This is the ScreenPro S16. Riding the wave of a new generation of machines from Edge Innovate, engineered from the ground up to meet today's toughest challenges, and ready for whatever comes next. Designed to give you the edge. Built for smarter operation with intelligent load management and intuitive controls, providing exceptional durability where it matters most. Every detail driven by one goal, to help you maximize every minute, to stay one step ahead. And now, for the first time in America, the ScreenPro S16 is coming to Con Expo Con Ag. Visitors to our stand will be the first to see it, the first to experience it, the first to discover our way of pushing boundaries. Be one of the first. Discover your edge at Con Expo Con Ag 2026.
Gary says, I wonder if we'll ever see the Landcross prototype that was on show actually working in the wild. I don't think so. Maybe. I mean, I think there are elements of it that we may well see in the wild, but things like a helipad for a drone, great for a show, a fantastic talking point. Does it actually have a place in the wild? I'm not entirely convinced. How many of these concept cars that you see at the Geneva Motor Fair ever actually make it onto the road? Very, very few. And I think that was one of those. I mean, I to my mind, I don't even mind if it doesn't. I think the fact that Hitachi show or Landcross have shown, how they're thinking and the direction they're thinking, I think that's good enough. And maybe here's where we could be, but the next stage is just to get to here and then to there and then to there. Bloody microphone gets right in the way. That's about it for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues, and your spines, as you're about to hear. And if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back immediately after this. Falls from height, crush injuries, being struck by falling debris or by heavy equipment. Those are the loud hazards, the ones that can end a career or a life in a heartbeat. But there's a quieter, more insidious threat vibrating through the floor of every cab on every site. It doesn't make you bleed and it doesn't make the evening news, but it is systematically dismantling the structural integrity of the workforce. It's called whole body vibration, or WBV. And for the man in the seat, it's the slow, rhythmic destruction of his spine. For years, the industry shrugged off the constant shaking of equipment as part of the job. Operators dismissed the resulting pain as simple fatigue. We treated it like a stiff neck, something a hot shower and a weekend off would probably fix. But the latest data tells a much darker story. WBV isn't just a nuisance. It's a chronic mechanical stressor that attacks the musculoskeletal and neurological systems. To understand why that's so dangerous, you need to look at the physics of the human body. We're not solid blocks of concrete. We're complex, flexible suspension system of bone, fluid, and tissue. Every part of us has a natural frequency, a specific speed at which it naturally wants to vibrate. And the WBV problem arises when the frequency of a machine engine matches the natural frequency of your internal organs or your spine. It's called resonance, and when it hits, your body stops resisting the movement and actually starts amplifying it. Instead of dampening the energy, you absorb it, driving mechanical force deep into your cellular structure. And those shocks exceed what your body can handle, causing micro trauma that slowly adds up shift after shift and year after year. We used to think that it was just about a bit of lower back pain, but the biological cost is far more expansive. Think of your spinal discs as hydraulic shock absorbers for your back. Now, under constant oscillation, the tough outer ring of that disc undergoes a fatigue failure cycle. It's exactly like bending a paperclip back and forth until it eventually snaps. Over time, tiny fissures develop, leading to herniation. Even worse, the vibration starves the spine of nutrients. It literally chokes off the blood supply the discs need to repair themselves, meaning that the damage that you do on a Monday hasn't even begun to heal by the time you climb back into the cab on a Tuesday morning. And then there's the neurological element, what is known as the tonic vibration reflex. When you're being tossed around, your muscles contract involuntarily to try and keep you upright. It's a survival instinct. But after 8 hours of constant firing, those muscles are spent. And once those muscles give up the ghost, they can no longer shield and protect your bones. Your skeletal structure is left wide open, absorbing the full impact of every jolt and every bump. And recent research has even found that this mechanical stress triggers systemic inflammation in the blood, leading potentially to heart strain and long-term disease. Turns out a career in the cab doesn't just wear out your joints, it actually changes your body chemistry. And the danger isn't spread evenly across the fleet either. Some machines are born high emitters. Skid steers are notorious for this. A skid steer with its short wheelbase and lack of any real primary suspension doesn't so much drive over rubble as it does pitch violently across it. Haul trucks are exactly the same. Even a well-engineered dumper becomes a torture chamber when it's driven over the lumps and bumps of an ungraded road. The vertical shocks from plot holes and the fore and aft snapping from sudden braking create a multi-directional assault that no human spine was ever designed to withstand. And mobile crushing plants offer a different flavour of risk. Operators standing on platforms attached to the vibrating chassis are taking that energy directly through their feet and their legs, which have even less damping capacity than a seated backside. Now, vibration rarely works alone, and the real danger comes from the cocktail effect. If an operator is working in the cold and damp, their back pain will develop twice as fast. If they're exposed to high noise, the vibration actually makes the inner ear more susceptible to permanent damage. But the biggest mistake, and I'm sure you're all guilty of this, the biggest mistake, apparently, is the jump and lift. An operator climbs out of a vibrating cab after 3, 4, 5 hours and tries to lift a heavy object. Their spinal tissues are in a destabilized, jelly-like state from the vibration, and they're at their most vulnerable, just when they're performing the most strenuous labor. A simple 5-minute recovery period before lifting anything heavy could prevent a lifetime of disability. Yet it's the most ignored rule in the book. So how do we combat this? For decades, we've relied on basic air seats, but we now know they can actually amplify high-frequency shocks on a rough site. There are active suspension seats that use high-speed sensors to read the floor and counteract the vibration in real time, but I don't think any of us will have access to those anytime soon. Beyond the tech, the most effective tool we have is often the simplest: road maintenance. Treating a whole road as a safety system rather than just a path for logistics can cut vibration by 30%. We also need to look at the soft side of operation. A skilled operator who understands speed selection and seat adjustment is their own best defense. If the seat is set to the wrong weight, it'll bottom out and hammer their spine. If an operator hammers over rough terrain while his truck is empty, they're asking for an injury. Job rotation, where we limit time on high vibration machines like skid steers, ensures that no one person takes the full brunt of the day's dose. In the future, we might have digital industrial hygiene, telematics that tell a manager where the vibration hotspots are on a site before anyone gets hurt. But until that is implemented and becomes standard, it will all come down to culture. Whole body vibration is a silent hazard because the damage accumulates not over days, not over weeks, but over decades. And by the time you feel it, the damage is already done. So the next time you're shaking all over, experiencing shake, rattle, and roll, or you feel all shook up, just remember the damage you're potentially doing. Now, there was quite a lot of research went into that, and it seemed like a damn shame to waste it. So, being the kind and generous and benevolent person that I am, I can tell you we've actually produced a more in-depth publication on whole body vibration. And if you bear with me for 1 second, I will copy that and I will stick it in the chat right now. You can grab that publication free of charge with my very best wishes. Whole body vibration. Let me go back to here in the chat. Jim says, talking of helipad, which we kind of were. Talking of helipad, a very successful local house builder that visited sites by helicopter was visiting the site and needs to know where to land. So the site agent told the labourer to mark out I think that was an H. But he used cement to mark the H. The result was a dust cloud on landing and the helicopter's engine needing a rebuild. Oh, well done. Well done indeed. Jim says, I have had herniated disc. It's fucking painful. Did it loading buckets up at Darley Moor. Didn't have time to wait for the forklift. As I said, there was lots that I found interesting about that. I mean, I think the fact that I say we, I'm saying the royal we, I don't suffer from whole body vibration because I'm sat still. But there was a lot that I learned from that. The number of operators that you see get out of the cab, get down the steps, and then do that thing with their back. Is that just because they've been sat down too long, or is that whole body vibration taking its toll? And then the one that really got me was that idea of jump and lift, where you get out of the cab to lift something when your core, your spine is basically destabilized already. Not so much now with the advent of quick couplers, but how many times have you done that? You've been working and you think, I need to change the attachment. I'll jump out and you've got a pin, which, let's face it, are not the lightest thing in the world. You've got a pin that you've got to heft, hold in the right place and drive through. How many times have you done that over the years? And do you feel it in your back? I bet you do. I bet you do. I do find it interesting, and I know we often do this comparison between assets, man and machine, and the amount of care that we take. We concern ourselves with the fuel that we're putting in and the amount of maintenance that's given to equipment and stuff. And we do less of that with the people actually making them operate. Here's another example. We've got sensors throughout the machines, monitoring stress and levels and temperatures and all of those things. And there's a guy in the seat who's being shaken to bits, basically, by the vibration of that machine, tracking across site and working in general. Who's monitoring that? We basically operate that person to destruction. By and large, we wouldn't treat a machine like that. We wouldn't ignore service intervals. By and large, we wouldn't ignore service intervals. We wouldn't ignore lubricant changes and filter changes and everything else. But with the guy sat in the cab, the guy that actually makes that machine function, we don't worry too much about him until one day he gets out of bed to find that he can't get out of bed. His back is in spasm, or he can't actually get himself upright. And what happens then? Scrap heap, bring someone else in the midst of a skill shortage. You'd have to think that this would be a very, very easy thing to monitor. I mean, and I realise I'm sort of marrying two technologies together here, but when you think about the advances that have been made in the compaction sphere, where they are able to very, very precisely monitor vibration and its effect upon, the mat or the ground that they're compacting. What about applying that to the seat and the guy's rear end or his spine and monitoring that? Okay, he's had too much of a dose. The other thing as well was, I mentioned this yesterday when I was kind of flagging this up. We're very aware of hand-arm vibration and the impact that can have. We have systems in place for that now. There are wearables that basically trigger, you've had enough exposure, you need to go and do something else, or this particular power tool is exceeding acceptable levels, put it down, walk away, do something else. When do we get that? When do the operators get that? Because numb fingers, not a bundle of laughs, but probably not life altering. The slow erosion of your spine, you'd have thought, would be a more concerning problem, right? Very good. Never knew this so bad. Yeah. Proper seats, proper cab suspension. I wonder about the cab suspension, because I mean, I think when you get there's a degree of suspension, I think, in a mini excavator, but when you get up to 14, 15, 20 tons, there's a fair degree. You can actually see it. You watch an excavator and you can see the cab doing this. But going back to that resonation thing, or resonance that I was describing there, I wonder if that's actually a solution or a potential contributor to the problem. If that is amplifying the shaking, and that's that thing that they always talk about, your core muscles, and to work on your core. You guys are effectively doing that anyway. Because if you were tracking across the site and you lurched to one side, you'd whack your head on the window to your side, or you'd whack your knees on the console in front of you. But you don't. Your body kind of inadvertently and without you really thinking about it has kind of locked itself. You kind of. So when you're experiencing those jolts and those shakes and those lumps and those bumps, you are engaging your core. You may not know it, but you are. But the problem, as I said in that article, was over a period, you can't hold yourself locked for 8 hours. After a while, your muscles will just go, no, I can't do this anymore. And then you're exposed. It's all a worry, people. Know that feeling, Jim. I now delegate such jobs. Yeah, whole body vibration and dust are the next two issues. I agree 100%. Putting pins in buckets before quick hitches used to sort them in from the boys. Yeah. Do you know? I was quite surprised. First time I ever did that, I was actually up on the proving ground that JCB used to have many years ago, and I was I'll put that pin in, and and when you see it, it's I know it's a piece of bloody steel, but it's about yay big and about that wide, I suppose. And I walked over and literally, I wouldn't say I couldn't lift it, but it was like, fuck me. Didn't want to appear like a big southern softy, so I picked it up, but I was astonished just how heavy it was. And it's not just that. It's not just the fact that you've got to lift it. You've now got to kind of maneuver it into position, and all of that is going through your spine. Jim says, I used to jump straight out the 36 cab when I was a young fella. Wish I hadn't done that now. I could have run an operation on my back, but the odds of curing it weren't good enough. Yeah. I'm just going to say very quick, buongiorno. Ripalo IT just joined us over on Instagram. My mate Pascale, good morning. Buongiorno to you, my friend. Haven't seen you in a long time. Very quickly, This is a guy, Italian, does lots of attachments and rebuilds and things like that. I was stood on the Caterpillar stand about 3 Con Expos ago, and I heard this Italian voice say, "Mark," and I turned around and it was him. Just heard my voice and thought, it's that guy. Yeah, we met up. Pascali, good morning to you, my friend. I'm now old enough for the back to start aching just looking at lifting or hitting anything. Yeah, and that, listen, we all get a little bit weaker and a little more susceptible to pain and suffering and stuff as we get older. But how much of that is just the wear and tear on your muscles, your bones, your spine, and how much of that has been actually caused by the machines that you've sat in over the years? And I also wonder, I mean, I kind of tracked, as part of my career, I kind of tracked the rise of concern over hand-arm vibration system or syndrome, or HAVS. It was, it's a problem. It's quite a big problem. We need to do something about it. We now have legislation. We have wearables. We have limits on the amount of time that you can actually work with this. I wonder if we're headed the same way. I wonder if in 5-10 years we'll look back and say, blimey, yeah, we've come a long way on whole body vibration. I wonder. Gary says, Komatsu used to be really good at providing a fantastic cab experience. I remember their cabs used to be on suspension where you could push the cab with your hands side to side. Yeah. But again, going back to that resonance thing, is that definitely a good thing? Gary says, I know what you mean, Jim. When we were younger, we thought we could lift the weight of 10, and now we're paying the price. Yeah. It goes back, and I'm not going to go off down this line again because I think we've kind of beaten that to death fairly recently. But it's a bit like the mental health thing. I think we are butch, manly men, and say I can't lift this pin and put it in place, or I can't move that mini excavator bucket from one place to another. Everyone will laugh at me. I'll be mocked. I'll be called a big softy or whatever it might be. I'll soldier on, and I'll risk my spine just to prove how much of a man I am. We're weird men, aren't we? We really are. Jim says, I still lift plenty of stuff, but I limber up first. But I'm slowing up now. I've gone from carrying 2 curbs to just 1. I know, mate of mine, I mean, it got him in the end, but he was like a local builder and stuff, and he started to develop arthritis in his shoulders and stuff, and it made it awkward for him to carry bricks and blocks and stuff like that. And one of his solutions was wearing a weightlifting belt. Cinch that in just before you're about to lift something, just to keep your spine aligned and everything else. As I say, it got him in the end, but it was okay for a while. I suppose we look at old plant and its operation through rose-tinted glasses. Would I want to do a shift on one now? Not a chance, no. And we have. I mean, in the course of a bit longer than my career, as I say, if you go up to the Monktail Museum, and I'm sure there are others just like it, but the Monktail Museum up in Eskilstuna, just around the corner from Volvo, they've got some of the older generation, so 60s and 70s dump trucks and stuff, and you've effectively got not much more than a wooden bench to sit on. Now, we know that's not great, and we know that putting an engine just here behind your head would probably make you deaf in not too long, and you'd be exposed to fumes and heat, and we know all that now. We know this now. We know about whole body vibration now. Is that going to be another driver? Is it going to be another driver for the development of equipment that can isolate and protect the operator from whole body vibration? Or does that push us more towards autonomy again, or remote control? We can't protect you. If you're on the machine, we can't protect you from the lumps and bumps of travel across the site. So what we'll do instead is we'll put you in a fixed location on a simulator where you can operate that machine that's 100 yards, 200 yards, 100 miles down the road. I never lift more than I know I can handle. If someone pushes, I say, you go and do it now, and F off, says Dan. When I ran Ackermans, they had quick hitches years ahead of anyone else. This is why I see the old guy walking down the road, humped back and bent over. Yeah. I personally think you see less of that these days. There used to be, and I'm not doing this for comedic effect. I'm telling the truth. There used to be a lot more people hunched when I was younger. And do you remember the lot where I grew up? There seemed to be a lot of people wearing those big boots. They had one leg shorter than the other. I don't know if that was a polio thing or something else, but you'd have one regular leg and a regular shoe, and you'd have another leg with a big boot on it. I have not seen one of those in years. Maybe we've just got better at covering it up. Maybe they still exist, but they look more like normal shoes. But I don't see that so much anymore. But I do remember this. When I worked for a magazine, bearing in mind, when I first started on the magazine, this was pre-email, pre-internet, everything that we now rely upon. So if we wanted to get a photograph from our headquarters in Sutton to our typesetter or our printer, it had to go by courier. A guy on a motorbike would pick it up, stick it in his bag, drive off down the road to the typesetter or the printer and hand it over. So as a result, I mean, I worked in a building that was 19 stories high, and every single floor had magazines, multiple magazines within it. So there was a constant in and out of couriers, and every single one of them, and this, I'm not doing this for effect, every single one of them walked with a limp, because every single one of them at some point had fallen off their motorbike or been knocked off their motorbike and now had what my dad would refer to as a gammy leg. I wonder if you were to gather together 100, 200, 500 lifelong equipment operators, excavators, skid steers, wheel loaders, dozers, graders, call it what you will, got 400 or 500 of them together and just went, all right, lads, how's your back? How many of them do you think would go, oh, yeah, I'm feeling that? I wonder. Chris says, sorry, boys and girls, I'm off to Ashbourne. Soon be time to get wet on the inside only these days. Funnily enough, in Ashbourne, I will be staying in the centre of Ashbourne. You know the Market Square? I'll be staying there in August because I'm going to a wedding. Weddings are always fun. I'm going to my first lesbian wedding. I am, and I'm quite looking forward to it. I have to say, yeah, it's in Ashbourne. It's one of my wife's, well, probably my wife's best friend. It's one of her daughters is getting married, and yeah, we've been invited, and we're going up to Ashbourne for the lesbian wedding. Looking forward to it enormously. So I think we've covered all the bases. We've done autonomous machines. We've done the strange desire to buy tanks, and we've done lesbian weddings. Nothing more to add, is there? I'll be back tomorrow with my conspiracy theory. If you fancy a bit of that, bring your tinfoil hats. Jim says, will you have time for a pint, Mark? I don't know what our travel times are. What I will tell you is sod's law, isn't it? So end of next week, right? So end of next week, I'm going to Leeds. On my birthday, I'm going up to Leeds, staying overnight to do the Institute of Demolition Engineers seminar, rushing back to here, pack a bag, jump on a plane, go to the States. The lesbian wedding, I'm up in Ashbourne for a couple of days. I drive back, drop the car, take a taxi off to Southampton to jump on off to the airport rather, to fly to Italy to go on a cruise. Why do these things all happen? So in answer to your question, Jim, I'll let you know, but I hope we can meet up. Absolutely. People, go and have a fantastic day doing whatever it is that you do. Work on your core, people. Work on your core. You may thank me later. And don't forget that for those of you who didn't get the link for the whole body vibration thing, I'll be putting it in our WhatsApp group as soon as the show is over. And also, if you go over to Demolition Insider, you'll be able to find it there as well. Can't say fairer than that. See you tomorrow, people. Have a good day. All the best.